No cussing, Mom. I love you.
Please, this is a family show. Okay,
I'll keep that in mind.
Back to the Unfinished TBR. I'm Hannah.
I'm Allie.
I'm Kasey.
And with us today is a very special guest, and I'm not exaggerating in the slightest. This is my mother, Darlene Smith, the one, the only.
Hello.
So throughout this month, this is the month of Mother's Day. So throughout this month, you're going to be seeing each of our mothers, and my mom happens to be the first guest. So we are going to be talking about her own reading journey, and let's get into it, Mom, because I'm so excited.
I woke up and told your dad this morning, I'm so nervous. This is what I do for a living, is talk. Well, what I did for a living. I guess I still do.
Yeah.
For a living, but yet I was so nervous I don't know. I just was nervous about what I was going to say.
It feels different. It takes getting used to.
Good news for you is your daughter is the editor, so
yes,
you
look
could
great.
just threaten a switch on her.
Great.
Just threaten a switch on her, and she'll be like, "Oh, okay."
I'll hold food off of her.
No. She knows me too well. All right, so let's start with. Well, have you seen any of the episodes?
I have seen parts of all. Usually I catch you all a little bit when you're throwing up your little intros and your little. They're really good, girls. It's really good.
Thank you.
And then I see a few where it says, "I hope my mom does not see this,"
And Mom sees it.
and then I go in to see what I'm not supposed to see because I still think that you're a kid at home and I need to be monitoring what you're doing.
Grounded. Straight to your room.
Straight to. It's not my room anymore, though.
Nope, that is correct.
The first video that my mom liked on Instagram was the one where I had Isla in it, right?
It might have been.
I think that was one of the only ones my mom has liked on Instagram.
Well,
She's caught back up. Her
grandbaby is
Yeah.
on.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, that's true.
I
That's
get it.
true.
You put Levi on here or Jonathan to be, and I'm all about it.
Oh, yeah. That's one way to reel Mom in is bring a baby along. We've got the pillow here that says no place like Gigi's house. This is Gigi. So let's talk about your reading journey. So tell me about your childhood. What do you remember most with reading about childhood?
And that was the part that I told Dad. I said, I think I'll be the most boring person they've ever interviewed because I never remember. There were no books in my house.
Really?
As you know, I was a Title I student, who meant that, we just didn't have a lot. We were on free and reduced lunch and free lunch. Not always the cleanest, definitely not the latest clothes. Mom usually sewed what we wore, but books was not a priority in my house. So I never really remember reading, probably until I got to be an upper elementary student. And I fell in love with the library at school. And I would check out books from there. But I never remember a single book in our home. And there was no time. That's what I was telling Dad this morning. We came in from school, changed into our old clothes, and hit the field to work. And we worked until dark time. And there was no time to read. So I remember reading probably around 5th grade. I remember really starting to get into enjoying the places that books could take me, that I didn't think I'd ever get to go, but I have got to go to some of those places. So
For sure. It transports you.
It does. It gives you a different life to look at, not just your own.
What were some of your favorites once you did get into the...
I was more into the autobiographies. I loved anything about any of the presidents. I love to read about the presidents. And they were hardback. I can see them today, and I can even almost remember how they smelled. You know how old books smell?
Yes, we've talked about that. That is the best smell.
And in our library, school library, we would have had older books. So they had that musty, but there was something about the smell, but it was mostly about presidents. I do remember reading something about a basketball player, and right now I can't even remember his name. He's still living, but for some reason he fascinated me, and there was an autobiography in the library about him. All of these books were red hardback. Most of them were red hardback, and the print was really large in them, and I've never been able to see, so that was a plus for me. Maybe that's why I was drawn to them. I don't know, but yeah. So I was probably a fifth grader. Still didn't get to read near as much as I have since then, but still had a love for reading. And just can I do a side note?
Absolutely.
So as I think about that, and then I move into my middle school years. Probably seventh or eighth grade, I can't remember. But I worked in the library in my class where I had the one block. It really wasn't called a block. We had about an hour that we didn't have class. So I would go in and I would put books away on the shelf in the library. And it was never knowing what that was going to transform in my life. I actually made... and I may get tears, and I'm so sorry, and tell myself this morning I'm not going to do it. But I earned a spot in the Junior Beta Club. And I was so proud, went home, and I was showing Mom the invitation I had. And she said, well, we can't afford that, the dues. And I, yes, although, you know how you do. You say yes, but inwardly you think, I wish I could.
Yeah.
And so didn't even think anything else about it. Was in the library working with Miss Roach. Her name is Miss Roach. I think she's since passed away, but Miss Roach was in there and I was in there working, and they called all Junior Beta Club members to come to the auditorium. And I just kept shelving books with tears in my eyes, wanting to be a part of that so badly, but understanding. And so in just, I don't know, it seems like a brief amount of time after they came and made the announcement, one of the TAs came in and she said, Darlene Farrell, my maiden name, what are you still doing in this library? And I said, oh, I'm just putting away books. And she was like, did you not hear the announcement? And then I had to speak the words that I guess I was embarrassed with. And I said, my family can't afford that. And she said, you get your stuff and you get to that auditorium. Your dues have been paid. And I didn't realize I was in high school before I realized it was Miss Roach.
Oh.
Miss Roach paid my dues. She saw something in me and wanted me to be a part of that. And so forever, she has been, means so much in my life, because if nothing else, that right there meant, okay, the library is a safe place I can go, and they're going to take care of your needs, and so she paid my dues. We never spoke about it, but still just, I don't know, I still think about it sometimes. I'm sure there's been teachers all through my life that have done that, but that was a really big deal to me that she saw that in me, so. Side note.
Why did any of us put makeup on? I
know.
I am almost in tears.
She's
right
worried
now.
she was going to cry. I'm going to cry. Oh, my gosh.
Well, I guess I'm saying that to say it matters. We think that every child has a childhood like ours. I mean, we sometimes forget that that's not the case. And I just think about all of my years of teaching and being in the education world. You assume that what you had at your house is what every child has, and that's not the case.
No. Right.
That's not the case.
Right.
And sometimes there could be a love for reading there, but there may not be anything to read at home.
Right.
So what can we do? How can we get those books in hand? How can we make the library a fun place to come? I don't know. It's just important.
It's so important.
I can testify.
Yes. I think people forget that because everybody's got it in their mind that it's just physical books that are at the library. It's just, that's where you go to study and stuff. But it is so much more then just that, because it's access for people that wouldn't normally have access. The library is completely free. Are you kidding?
You know, and I think there used to be I'm getting us off topic, but there used to be a stigma at the library where you can't talk, you can't, everything, and the librarians seem so old maybe and rigid, and they would give you the eye and you felt like you were at church, doing something wrong, and now I don't see that. Just this week I was in one of the I won't say which one, but I was in one of the libraries here in our school district doing a visit. Walked in and there's a coffee bar, and the kids were just mingling around and getting some coffee and some sweets, and the library was more of a meeting place, if you'll have it. Students were studying, students were talking, and the librarians were not old, nor were they very authoritarian looking. Everybody was just, I think it's the new, if we're going to make kids love books, we've got to have places that they can go and love books.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
And love being there. Don't feel like they're being in the way by wanting to be around books.
Right.
And I remember another time that a librarian, she would pull books and only let the kids read those books because their reading level was only this level. I have a little bit of a problem with that, because I remember even when I was working at the preschool, we would do picture walks. Kids were not reading. They were 3 and 4 years old, but we would take picture walks, and right after we ate a snack, they would go in and pick a book and just lay on the floor and go through it. And they would tell the story to each other of what they thought was happening per the pictures. Yeah. How important that is. That is where and so I just called it a picture walk. It was just developing that, if you'll have it, a habit, but then creating that love for reading that is so important. So.
It cultivates that creativity.
So don't pull books and tell me this is the genre or the level that I need to be reading. Yes. Because even if I've noticed with you all, you read the same book, but sometimes there's 3 different perspectives come out of you all.
Yes.
Me and Allie looked at each other like we're always polar opposites. Yeah.
Except with autobiographies.
That's true.
Well, we hope we only get one perspective out of an autobiography.
But do you see how that happens, though? It's because it's the experience that you have had and the learning moments you've had in your past as to what you take away that applies to you. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, I don't know. Yes. It's reading is a crazy thing.
It really is. I have to ask, because I know some people have the thing where they just see the words on the page. Does your mind start playing the movie whenever you're reading? Or do you just see words?
I don't see either. I think I am. Well, I don't know what you mean. Do I see the movie? I'm actually creating it in my mind.
Okay, so like you're actually seeing the scenes.
Like I'm making it myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I never like to go see a movie before I read a book.
Yes.
Because I want my own creation.
Yeah.
But then I find it very fun to go and watch the movie and be like, no, that was wrong. That's not how that happened. Or as Rusty always says, well, we watched this movie, but I can already tell you, you're not going to like the end. He can already predict the movie's success or failure based on my person. I have a certain way I want it to end. So when you're reading, you can make that ending. And you can make it do whatever you want it to do.
Exactly.
If you're watching someone else's, I feel like sometimes if you watch the movie, that takes you into the world of the book in their perspective and not necessarily in your own.
Yes.
So you might miss some things that might make you grow or make you have a different thought about something.
Yeah.
Because you're listening to someone else and they're, in essence, dictating.
Yes. Yeah, they're putting their own thoughts on it, and sometimes they're just wrong. They're just
and sometimes, as we found with Harry Potter, they didn't even read the book before they started making this movie.
And that's sad, but we know that happens, right? Yes. I mean, that's part of the world we live in.
Very true. Very true.
So if you only read the words and you're not making the movie, how do you really take anything from it? It's just words.
Well, I think personally, I don't know about you guys, but I think that is where people don't develop a love for reading. I think anybody who can't see that movie when they're reading, they're like, what's the point of this? Because they're not seeing anything.
Aaron only sees words.
Yes.
And he's not really a big...
I've got to say, the first time I ever experienced realizing not everyone starts making a movie in their head once they get into the book was in a small group teaching. Because I said, once you get into it and you start making pictures in your head, and my lower reading group kind of went, the what? And my higher group went, yeah. And I could see that was the difference between your understanding and like what you're taking in from what you're able to read from your ability level there.
Now, let's talk about this because I don't think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
How do you think an audiobook would work for those people?
Ooh,
do you think that would help cultivate?
I feel like it would, because a lot of times they do really well with read alouds, and that seems to help them more because they have better access to, they're not struggling over the vocabulary and maybe some background knowledge they didn't have because they have somebody that's able to explain it while they're going through it, and it does seem to help more.
What do you think, Mama?
Well, if you think about the illustration, if you couldn't read.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, being, in the education realm, I remember doing Dibbles testing on all the 5th grade students. And I had one student who there was definitely a learning disability there. He didn't even know, he was in 5th grade, didn't even know his sight words, the basic sight words. And what do you do? How do you create a love for reading with him? And I do the Dibbles testing where it was read a passage for 1 minute and see how many words you can get in the minute, correctly read. And then they had a minute of retell, and they scored a certain amount on that. Okay, so then when I would run his, he might in a minute, finally get 8 words. Finally, after, it was just sad because I'm thinking, how do you get anything out of anything you're reading if all it takes you 1 minute and you've gone through 8 words?
I'd be exhausted.
Ladies, I'd stop. I mean, I'd just not be reading. I mean, you couldn't pay me enough. But then what would happen when I would say, okay, I almost said his name. Tell me what the story was about. What did you read? And I'm thinking 8 words. What do you have? He could go on and tell a passionate story about the 8 words that he read. So when I talked to his mom about it, she was like, yeah, it's probably because he loves me to read him the encyclopedia every night before he goes to bed. He would go pick out an encyclopedia and then bring it to bed, and she would pick something out of there and read it to him. So he was taking in all the audio.
Yeah.
He just could not do the actual reading side of it. That would have been in 5th grade. Excited to say I had left the school district there for a little while, went to I happened to have his dad in class, and his dad brought the child by one day. I was in a meeting. His dad and the child, who is now in high school, comes over, knocks on the door, and then he motions for me to come out of this meeting. So I excuse myself, get up, go out. We go down to where my office was at, and he said, the child, we'll call him Johnny. Johnny wants to read something for you, Miss Smith. And he had a chapter book, mind you, would not have been a high school level chapter book, okay? Mind you that. But he sat down and started reading, and I was just weeping. Tears were just flowing because it was slow but precise. And he was reading it, and then I would stop him every now and then and say, gosh, what do you think about that character? And he would give me a reflection. So I knew he was getting it. What a great thing. There is hope. There's ways around it, and I don't, audio may be the way to get that love of reading in our children, the children who love knowledge, but for some reason there's something there that's blocking them from being able to learn.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of those children in our own community. Mm-hmm. I dare say probably in the whole world that we could go anywhere and find students in that. And how frustrating when a minute's ticking by and all you can get out are 8 words, and it was just the basic sight words. So his goal for the end of the school year was to know all 208 sight words. He had 197 under his belt when he left, and I was super proud of him, and he was super proud of himself.
yeah.
So if we don't find ways to help kids cross a hurdle, they'll never get that love. They'll never get a desire. And gosh, think about all that there is in the world that if you can't read, you can't do.
Yes.
Pull up at a menu at a drive-through. Can't read. You're going to go by the pictures. I want whatever that is with them little nugget things on there. It looks like there's some French fries. I mean, just think about all the places. I have a time or two turned my trash can the wrong direction, and I would get the little note that tells me don't put the handles go in instead of out. If I had not been able to read that, my trash would not be picked up, because that is what they say. You don't turn it around, they're not going to pick it up. And it makes sense. I get it. But just think about all the day-to-day that I feel like if parents could only understand how important reading is, there would be more of an emphasis. I remember, and I'm talking way too much, ladies, because I was thinking, what am I
You're
gonna
literally the guest.
I was thinking, what am I even going to say? Because I did not have the normal life that all of them would have had. But I'm thinking about even with you three. The research says boys are less interested in reading. We see that they're more into math and science. It's not always 100%, but that's just the way it goes. So you have a son. You're going to probably have to work a little harder to get him to read.
Oh, no.
Oh, great.
I have an exception to the rule.
Good.
I have to tell him I'm done reading.
Okay.
And we can only read the books per parent. Will only read it 3 times a day. And I have him a whole bookshelf of approved, I'm not tired of these yet.
And
to the point where I can just stop reading and he'll fill in sentences for me of the story.
Right.
And we're
Oh my
talking like
gosh,
Curious George paragraphs. He'll finish 2 sentences after.
He's so smart. Oh my god.
And
He has a love for reading, though. I mean, which I did start reading to him like almost immediately.
Yes.
And
that's the key.
one time that he knows he gets 100% attention. And he loves attention.
Yes. And I don't know, maybe there's going to be a generational shift with you new mothers who you have time to sit down with them. I think it was just understood boys are rough and tough and they want to be outside.
Yeah.
And we know there's the research actually shows there's a lot more ADHD with boys than there are girls. But if we all think of our husbands, we know that they need to be kept busy. They need to be outside. They need to be running, and that's actually what the research says. Recess. If you take recess away from anybody, don't let it be a boy, because they need that energy out. They just have that bubbling in them. So for Daniel, our oldest, it would be a cereal box left on the kitchen table, because back then there were stories on the back, flipped around, and it would be sitting there waiting on him when he came down for breakfast. While he's eating, he didn't want to read it, but while he's eating, guess what?
His eyes wander.
And then you see, it's here. There's nothing else to do.
There's a cool picture with
I
it.
think I'll read it. And then also he loved the video games, so we bought there used to be cheat sheet books that you could read so they could beat the games. Why would you even want to play if there's a remedy around? It's not.
Yeah.
Anyway, we would buy those books because he was all about figuring out how to beat the games.
Yeah.
So that was
Tracks.
Yes, that was easy enough to get him to do some reading that way.
My mom did something similar with my brother. If he presented her a video game and it had like riddles you had to solve and read through things to help the character move along, she would buy all of those games for him. Now the other games he might have to use his own money for. But.
That's exactly. And so you get creative. I remember Rusty would leave out the newspaper maybe and open to a certain sports article, just because Dana was all about sports. I remember we did the Sports Illustrated Junior Edition. You started talking. I was like, And
Really desperate to get into.
not that desperate. Junior, and it was full of sports articles. So did he read the whole magazine? No. Would there be times that he didn't read any of it? Yes. But any is better than none.
Yeah.
And then you just gotta be tricky with them. Sometimes you just gotta be tricky. Hannah, there was never a problem getting her to read.
The problem was getting me to stop.
Exactly. She probably has scars on her knees from falling and walking and reading and falling. Church would end and she would immediately hit the car to get back in her book. And I was like, Hannah, you're never going to have any friends if you don't stay in it. Well, but I'm enjoying my books.
Mom, I have 2 book friends now. Yeah.
But I do remember, and let me say that how important reading is I've told this story through the years on her. We had not been here long, just living in this house very long, and so I was upstairs doing Sarah, the youngest one's hair, and I sent Hannah on down to eat breakfast, Pop-Tart. I'm sorry, Bobby Kennedy, I will straighten that up. I have straightened that up now, but she would eat a Pop-Tart, so she came on down while I was doing Sarah's hair, and we knew there was a mouse in the house. We had this is the 1940s house, and there's a lot of little holes and lots of little places for creatures to get. We knew he was here, we just hadn't caught him. And so Hannah went down, and I'm doing Sarah's hair, and I hear a big old war whoop downstairs, and so I figure, he's made himself visible because we were all upstairs, and so it was quiet down here. He'd come out of his little hole. Anyway, she comes running up the steps, and she said, Mom, a mouse just scampered across the countertop. And I said, oh, Hannah, that's such a great vocabulary word. And she said, Mom, focus. And I said, but scamper? And she was 5. She was 5.
Oh.
So reading is of utmost importance. Reading is of utmost importance because that's when you start picking up those vocabulary words. I actually read some research the other day. I'm all about research. I love research. And I read some research the other day that says students should be introduced, kindergartners should be introduced to, well, really, you can go all the way up, 4,000 new vocabulary words a year. And I know a few years ago, we actually had to back off on the amount of vocabulary that children should know coming into kindergarten because they couldn't meet it. Now, so go with me here, ladies. Why is there a decrease? Are our kids getting dumber?
No, they're probably not getting access.
With
COVID recently is definitely done a big dig.
What are they getting access to the most?
Screens.
Yep.
And it's not building those vocabulary words. And I've even heard you, Hannah, say that you don't feel like you might be as good of a writer because you do a lot of audio because of your work.
Yes.
And not seeing, if you think about when you're reading, you're seeing the word. And that's kind of setting, I won't go into all the technical side of it, but in essence, you're seeing that word and you can reproduce it visually, meaning you can spell it in your writing because you're seeing it, but also using the word because you're reading it. Does that? And it becomes a common word now because you've read it enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was actually really embarrassed. Just this, one of our. Today is the 19th, April 19th. Tomorrow is when our Knoxville Book Festival episode airs. And I had to put captions on. The amount of times I had to speak certain words into my phone to have it spell it out for me. I was like, this is embarrassing. How dare I? But it's because I do 75% audiobooks now. Yeah. And
I even think, I want to be careful. We rely so much on the screens. I'm pointing. You can't see it. There's a TV over here. Yeah. But we rely so much on that. And I have been in libraries, in schools where the story is being read on the TV. Ladies, there's something about reading a story live, and in that moment, and them seeing you and hearing you be enthusiastic about reading,
Yes.
and they all of a sudden something. It's like when you tell a kid, "Okay, listen, I'm going to tell you this, but don't tell your mom." What do you know they're going to go do?
Immediately go tell mom.
Exactly. So this is kind of the same. This is the same way. This is what I'm. They hear that in your voice, and then it's like, I want to read that. I want to read like that, or I want to read that book again, Mom.
Yeah.
You must be doing something right, because he's asking for more than 3 times, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And it's 3 per parent, so that's
6
6 a day he can have the same books read to him.
And I think, to an extent, I think all kids are like that. I remember Daniel,
Yeah.
and I still have this book in my collection. There was a Disney book, that a hardback, and I don't even remember where I bought it, but reading and books have always been in Hannah and her brother and sister's lives, because our love. Rusty's a reader as well, but I remember this book, and I don't remember where I bought it. Might have been a gift, I'm not sure, but there was one story, and I was expecting Hannah at the time. There was one story, a little poem like about having a little sister, and he knew what page it was on. 34, Mom, 34. And so we would go to 34, and there would be the poem. Sometimes I read it, sometimes he read it verbatim, and it was a poem like long.
Oh, wow.
And I would just, and he would have been, Hannah was born in May, Daniel turned 2 in January, but he knew that.
Yeah.
He knew that poem. That was his favorite, and we probably read it 100 times a day. And if I refused to read it, he would turn to page 34, and he would read it himself. He didn't know the page number, but he knew the picture.
I'm going to keep flipping until I get there.
And then he would read the poem. And you would think he was reading because he was looking at it. Sometimes he was even tracking with his finger. Now, it was not on, but
But the finger's there. The words are here. It's close.
it's good practicing
Yes.
already for what's coming ahead.
Directionality. He knows.
That's exactly right. So
Teachers are going to get nerdy over here. Sorry.
So bottom line is, it might not have been important in my young life, but I wanted that to be different in your all's life, in the next generation's life, because once I found the books, wow. Oh, The Places You'll Go, one of my favorite books, because it's so true. They take you get to visit places, you get to talk to people, you get to figure out who people are, you get to go into their world. Sometimes you wish you hadn't, but you do. And then,
I've had a few hate reads.
Yes.
I'm reading this to tell you exactly why this is wrong, and you could have done better.
Yes.
yes.
Well, so you've talked about me and Daniel's.
Yes.
How about Sarah's?
Yeah, I better get Sarah in there. I'll be in trouble when I don't
I'm looking
let her
out for you, Sarah.
Don't let her see this. This is she'll say I'm always the last. But she was born the last, right?
Yeah.
There
You
was
just went in
a lot of reading with her as well. I don't think she was, none of them compared, as you know, to you, Hannah. None of them had as great of a love for reading. I think as Hannah, as Sarah, I do that all the time.
Yeah,
I'm
that's not
fine.
that is not a reflection of anything that has happened since childhood. I answer to Sarah still to this day.
They know who I'm talking about. I think with Sarah, as she's gotten older, I see more of that love of reading, and
I agree.
I think she just grew into that for whatever reason. I don't know. It's been fun watching everybody moving at their own pace,
Yes.
more so. But I can remember, and I don't know whether you'll remember, but sitting right here in this house in the kitchen at Granny's old table where my dad had sat and ate. That's where we had breakfast in the morning times. And I don't know why I did it, but that was my reading time. Do you remember it? Do you remember us doing that?
I don't think so.
Well, I would stand, they would be eating breakfast around the table, and I would stand up as though I was in a classroom, and I would be reading a book to them. Sometimes they picked it out. Most of the time I picked it out because I'm not sure they wanted to even read. But it was a great time because they were low key. Everybody had just woke up, And so everybody was listening, still probably dazed. But
That's why I don't remember it. I was still half asleep.
She's just hoping, please don't ask me a question right now.
But I remember one morning reading. I don't remember the book, but I remember reading, and I was congested. My voice was so raspy, and I was turning the page and had turned a few pages reading, and then Sarah speaks up and she said in tears, "Mom, please stop reading that book. Your voice makes it sound scary." So I ended up handing the book to Daniel, and he finished it off reading. And I mean, it was a pleasant book. It wasn't a scary book, but Mommy's voice was making it sound like it was some kind of a mean, cruel book, and she was not afraid.
Further, a better example of how an audio narrator can really change the dynamic of a book.
True. One of the things that I like, if I'm going to listen to audio, I want the opportunity to speed it up.
Yes.
I love that readers feel like we all want to hear him or her precisely read the words correctly, but it's boring the crap out of me. Let's just hit it and go.
I'm convinced they slow down that 1.0 speed. That has got to be slowed down. There's no way.
I think what they do is the audiobook narrators, I think they purposefully read slower because it's less chance of messing up and having to go back and redo it.
I mean, that's a good...
So that's like their way of...
Yeah. That's a good thought, probably. But I'm with you. That was like the worst thing in class was whenever they would pull out the audio, tapes and like play the books from the textbook on those tapes. Because I was like, I am done with this page and you are like a fourth of the way through. What do you mean? Why are we going so slow? Like, so yes, that is the best part about is being able to speed it up.
And I think another thing that we see is we hand kids devices, screen time, but we're not really closely monitoring what we're giving them. The audio books, our kids do not have attention spans to sit and just listen to words. They have to have something moving on the screen or something. It's crazy because Levi, our grandson, he will grab my phone and he knows, although he doesn't, nobody has ever showed it, he knows to scroll up. He's tired of that one. He's moving on. He's swiping right there on the frame that you got me, Hannah. The pictures will come up. If it's something he's done with, he's swapping to go right on. He's not going to sit there and look at that. I've seen that 100 times, and none of those people interest me. Where's Matt? Yeah, that's been his new thing. Is Matt? Where's Matt?
Constantly.
So he's constantly swooshing whoever he's crazed with that day. He's looking for pictures of just them. That's what he wants to do. So I don't know. It's I remember when in school I would read the story. The weekly story that you all grew up knowing. We read it aloud. I usually read it, and then once, and then we would come back through and they would help me read. I would stop and I'd call somebody's name and they had to pick up on the word that I stopped on. And if they were in the right place, I would walk back and lay a Tootsie Roll on their desk. That you would thought you'd hung the moon. You know, it's a Tootsie Roll. It's a Tootsie Roll, not a Tootsie Roll. Yeah. And so, but then there's also a reading center over in the corner where with headphones that they could go back. And actually at that time, the reading books came with audio cassettes. Yes, lady. Those had two little holes. No, you know it.
We're old enough.
You actually just unlocked a memory for me of a reading corner in elementary school.
Exactly. And so they would go back then and listen to someone else's voice reading it. They had heard my voice reading it. They had heard each other's voices reading it. You hope that one of those begin to stick, right. and it goes forward from there. So anyway, got off on a side tangent there.
I love it. There's so much science behind it, though.
A ton more than we realize. And I just think if we could stop, if we as parents could stop long enough to, it is a lot, 3 times a day. It is a lot, but so happy that he is loving to read and not running the other direction, and because I'd be more concerned if he wasn't wanting to read and not hearing you,
Right.
You've got to pick out that routine. There was not a day that went by that we were not reading. That's the breakfast. I don't even know why I picked breakfast, why it wasn't bedtime. I don't know, but it was breakfast. And so we've got to have those times.
Well, on top of that, it helped cultivate our relationship too. It's a bonding experience with all of us kids and you, and that's a good bonding exercise. On top of we're learning at the same time.
And if you think about it, kids' books are not very long. I know with Levi, I'm still not reading all of the words, especially if there's a lot on the page. He doesn't have the attention span. Research says your attention span is 1 minute times your age. So if you're a 1-year-old, that means 1 minute. If you're a 3-year-old, that means 3 minutes. Now, I'm just turned 58 years old. Do you have 58 minutes with me? No, I might be regressing and going the other direction. I might be going back. They say as you age, you go back to your childhood. Well, I may be going that direction. I think all of us are. I think all of us are kind of regressed in our attention spans. I don't think any of us are what we're so used to going, swiping through the TV. We can pull up anything at any time. We can stop it, restart it. There's so much that we have to do. And sometimes when Levi's eating, I'll have a little show that he likes. It's called
Super Simple Songs.
Super Simple. He loves anything music.
Yeah.
And so that'll be on, and they'll cut in with a commercial. He'll start.
Oh, yes.
It's called a commercial. You have to wait. And sometimes I will not go ahead and click the skip. I want him.
As well, I purposely make him wait through those ads and commercials if I'm watching something, because I'm like, you need patience. And this is one frustrating way that you're going to learn it.
You're exactly right. And I fear we are not giving kids. Sometimes it's okay to be. It's okay. You all have proven it. It's okay to read a book you don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kasey.
You're welcome.
Kasey.
I was teaching you all a lesson, not because I didn't properly prepare. My bad.
The thing is, it's you may love it. We read one at Christmas. Several of the family read one.
Under the Magnolias.
I thought it was cheesy and was ridiculed
I did
because
not think
I
it
thought
was
it was
that
cheesy. It just seems like there's just too much ooh and goo, and
I didn't think that Vance hung the moon, and I was ridiculed.
So but it's each person's perspective, and I'm so glad that we have that opportunity to do that. So let your kids. I don't like this book. Well, we're going to finish it to the end.
Yep.
I mean, I don't care if you're tired of seeing Brown Bear. We're going to go see that Purple Cat as well, because we're already invested. So we're going to do it. We're not going to hit the skip button right off the bat. You're going to have to wait. There may be some down songs. I think about little Levi at church. He started singing at church with the kids, and he always wants to sing Soldier. I may never march in the infantry. And so he'll start bumping his head to let you know that's what he's wanting. Well, that's what we have to sing. But then if somebody else wants to sing one, he'll go over and sit with Poppy on the front bench and wait till he doesn't want that. I mean, he says that's not what. Or he'll, as soon as they start singing, he'll start. He wants to do something else. That's not the song he wanted. So now when we're here and we're singing, I just go ahead and finish it out. Although he's yelling for the next one, he's changed his mind. I just keep right on singing until it's done. And it's like, oh my gosh, will this lady ever hush? I'm tired of this song. But I can see a gradual acceptance. He may still not like it.
Yeah.
But are you seeing a difference with the skip?
Yeah, he actually has favorite commercials now, which is odd. If Capital One comes
Isla
on, he will enter the room If he wasn't even in, he's like, oh, where's the Capital One guy?
You said yours was doing the same thing. She loves commercials. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she just loves music. So if a commercial has
A jingle.
yeah, she'll sit there and just
Well, and you know, when I even think about that, one of the things I used to have in my classroom was karaoke machine. I bought it at a yard sale. I got it for $10.
I was in the wrong classrooms growing up.
Brought it in because think about it. That's reading.
yeah. Yeah.
You love music.
It's poems.
Exactly. You love music.
Where was this explanation to my father when I wanted a karaoke machine at Christmas? Oh my gosh, let's travel back. You need to come talk to him. I'm about 6th grade, 5th grade.
Well, I mean, just for me, I didn't care what they were reading. I just wanted them to be able to do the practicing. Another thing I remember we did was poetry reads. We had tea times on Fridays. And so on Mondays, the kids got to pick which poem they wanted to read. I had a whole tub full labeled by categories, taking in the interest in my classroom of things. I had a CDC student who came over and joined my class a certain time every day, and I knew he was into insects. He loved bugs. And so the poems were very short. This was 5th grade, very short, because that would be a challenge for him. And it wasn't memorizing the poem. They had to read it to what the calculation I did was however many people were in the classroom, however many students were in there, that's how many signatures they had to have where they read it to somebody. Because even if nobody's at home that wants to hear this poem, there was classmates who wanted to hear it and needed to hear it. So from Monday to Friday, they were supposed to get 25 signatures if there was 25 kids in the room. I'd never thought about where this was going to go. I was just trying to get them to read. And so on Friday, they had to get up and read the poem, not memorized, but just read with the paper in hand. But then the bus driver started telling me, your kid, Joey, he just got up on the bus and he said he needs to read a poem. And so everybody was just listed. They were stopping people in the hall. The cafeteria ladies were getting it. I mean, there was all kinds of signatures. Okay, so, there was a few naysayers, as there is always. Wherever you're at in life, there's naysayers, a waste of time. It's not going to work. But what ended up happening, and I'm seeing the kids' face in my mind as I'm talking about this. He comes in like maybe the first Friday, and I call him. What we did on Friday was just as we got a little downtime between, like if we had 5 minutes, there was 5 minutes before lunch that the other classes had already gone, and I was the last one to go, so I had a 5-minute block there. So we would just get up and do our poems. Just, okay, come on, whoever's next. Okay, so I almost said his name. The kid jumped up and came up front. What a mess. Don't do. And so when he finally finished, I said, how many signatures do you have on your paper? And he said, I got 28. And I said, wow, I would have guessed not even one would be on there. And then the other kids started getting up and reading, and it was so fluent, which is what I was wanting them to get to.
Yes.
Fluency with reading. Because you want to read if you fluently can read.
Right.
Does that make sense? When you're reading 8 words in 1 minute, listen, that'd be my least favorite.
Yeah.
That'd be like just pluck off my
I'd give off.
toenails.
Yes.
I mean,
I give up.
That's exactly right. So I had no more problems, and he was probably my hardest behavior-wise and academic student I had. No more after that. That sealed it. And on that same note, I had a newcomer come into the class, and he spoke no English. I paired him with a bilingual student, and both of them picked out a poem. And so when the student came up to read his poem, the bilingual student always came with him, and he would say the words, and then the kid would repeat it. Don't make weird faces. And then the child would say, don't make weird, we went through the whole process. Week 3 comes, and I call on him to come read his poem. He comes up by himself, and I'm like, Reuben, he said, he don't want me today. And what? And he got up and read an entire poem on his own, almost perfectly. Tears welled up in my eyes. We have got to give them opportunities to read. I must have an opportunity to read. I must that has to be a priority in your classrooms, in your home. You got to have that as a priority.
Oh yeah, that's proof right there.
And
that's crazy.
And it was the third week, so it was the third Friday that he had been there.
Wow.
And on that same token, that same student, I would have brought him home, not the mean one, but this one, I would have brought him home. And as I've said, and you're a teacher, you know, this house would be full of kids, you know, because I could bring them home. But this particular child, the newcomer, the day he came in, there was a knock at the door. I opened the door and they said, "This is your new student. His name is so-and-so. He doesn't speak any English. Let us know if you need anything." So he comes back and I sit him with Reuben immediately. You two are best friends now. Tell him that you're his best friend. So he would tell him, you know, all this. So anyway, I was in the middle of reading one of my favorite books and I pulled it, Love You Forever. I read it a million times to my kids. I've read it to you when you were in my class in college. And I was in the middle of reading this book, and there's a page that it says, the kid is sometimes the mom said, he's driving me crazy. And I was just, as I was reading, I was doing the movement. And when I glanced back at the newcomer, he was smiling from ear to ear. He didn't understand anything I was saying, but this is universal. The fact that I was so into the story, he doesn't understand what the words mean, but I am winning him over.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, parents, if I can just give you a little bit of advice, read. Find you a block of time, whether that be at breakfast, whether that be with your raspy voice, whatever it is, find you time to read and do it like you love it. Not like you hate it.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm talking way too much.
Oh no, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
that is good stuff.
I'm
Good-
not sure you wanted any of that education.
Oh, no, it is.
But the teacher in me can't help it
Oh, yeah.
because it all starts so early.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear there's books. I remember one of the days I was down keeping Levi at their house. There's a bookshelf over there, and he went over, and it was like he was a grown-up person at the library. He was wanting me to read, and he had brought me several already. We'd already calculated or started a little stack here. But he would go back over there, and he would be like, and there's a whole bunch of them there. He would be fingering through like he was so familiar with all of these, you know. But he knew the picture fronts, the ones he wanted to be read to. But we didn't read. I mean, we didn't really read the words. If it was a book that had words that were a song of some kind, we sang it, and he would listen to all of that. But he's not going to do the long. He's not that sit down and let's do that. Let's just move. He's looking for ghost. He's looking for a moon. He's looking for an elephant now, and every time he sees one,
So
he's
smart.
making he's crazy.
He's
about
on elephants right now.
And so if one comes on TV, he's making the sound and doing his arm out. I mean, it's the boy thing.
So cute. That's so cute. All right, well, I'm trying to think of the other questions that I had. What did
Favorite
we
book?
Oh yeah. Do you have a favorite book?
It would have to be this.
I
one.
love that. That's such a good choice.
And if you've not read it, I would say I keep a copy of this on my shelf all the time. I've given it as baby gifts, shower gifts. I want to show something here and tell a story on my students. So it goes through the story of a motherhood life, you know, and the kids getting big. And it's the same chorus. Do you know this book? Mm-hmm. And anytime I'm reading it, adults, kids, it doesn't matter. We always do a choral read, and they always read, "I'll love you forever. I'll like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby you'll be." They do that part. I read the rest. And so I was at Sarah's, your sister's, classroom, second grade classroom the other day, and this is one of the books I read. And so they were doing the choral reading, and I told them, I said, "Oh, I used to read this book to Miss Rogers when she was a little girl." Well, that all of a sudden was already like, oh my, you read this to her? It's in such good shape. You know, and I've gone through many of these by that time.
Oh yeah.
I wish I had the original, but anyway, they would say the chorus, the choral read here, and they would always look over at Miss Rogers, and they'd be looking so sweet to her, like your mommy would say this to you, whatever. I even saw at the end one little girl got all teary-eyed when the daddy comes in and reads to his little baby, and so they love the fact that I read this book to Sarah, but this page in particular, it never failed at school. And here's what I'm saying, guys, you can't assume that everybody's life is like yours. And this is meant for a funny. This is just a funny. You can edit this out if you need to. But it says the teenager grew and he grew and he grew and he grew until he was a grown-up man, and he left home and got a house across town. And so there's that page. But then the very next page, look what's happening. Okay.
Yes.
So the car is en route. And I would say, he says, but sometimes on dark nights, the mother got in her car and drove across town. And I would say, where do you think Mom is going? And it would never fail. Somebody in the room would say, the beer joint. That's sad.
Not this night.
But do you know what
This
that
wasn't
tells
a Friday.
you? Do
That's
you know
where-
what, you know what
Where
that tells-
mommy goes.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So you find another reason to be reading. Let you find out so much about kids and what's happening at home. You really do.
True.
So, anyway, that's probably my favorite book, and it is a little kid's book. I did just finish reading, and I think that's it sitting on that table. Right
Piercing
there.
the Darkness.
Is that yes? That book hurt my heart, but oh my gosh. Oh no, it was done. It was done. There's two of these books. Davin Hatfield brought it to me not long after I came on the school board, and he said this book made me think of you. And he also sent it with a character account to where I know who was who. I'm so glad there was so much happening in this book, but it's evil, then goodness comes, and a kind of a slow start for me because it's trying to meet everybody. But oh my goodness, you get halfway in and I couldn't lay it down, and then you start applying it to your life and what's going on in our world. And some of these people started praying. They were looking for the light. They were wanting to do and they knew their only hope was the prayer that they could have and the talk that they could have with their God. And so that prayer is what sustained this community and brought them to the light. This book has forever changed who I am. I often think about it because of situations it talks about in here where they feel like things happen to all of us, and it's bad things, and sometimes we wonder why. It's to test our faith. It's to test, are we going to remember who we have to call up to? Who are we going to depend on? There's a purpose and a reason for all things, and he's working it out for our good. And so all the crazies that's been going on in the world, and sometimes in our own lives, Lord, thank you. I'm so glad that I know that you're in control regardless, and you're working everything out for my good. I would definitely recommend it. There's a second book to this, and it's not sitting in here, and I'm terrible about remembering book names, but I would highly recommend that. Thank you, Davin, for suggesting I read that. It's made me a better school board member. It's made me a better community person. It's made me a better stakeholder. It's made me a better teacher. It's made me a better parent. Just the reminder, somebody's got to hold it up, and I want to be one of those holding it up.
Right.
So
Right.
you can
That's
edit
so
all that out.
good. That's so good. I love that. It's definitely going on on my list. Davin, I would like to borrow it as well, please. But yes, you've spoken highly about both of these books. So yeah, I want to read them and get that same insight. I think it's important.
I think about it almost daily. I will think of something that pertains in my life, and it's like a little reminder right there.
Right. All right. Well, Mom, thank you so much for joining us today. That was so insightful. And it's always nice to get somebody else's opinions as well, because I mean, everybody's got their own views on books and like what speaks to them about books in general.
Yeah.
And I think we learned a lot today from your experience, even as a kid, not having any, and then getting to elaborate. That's such a good reminder for everybody how important reading is.
Very much. I can't express. I can tell you there's teachers all over the world that would wish that you would spend some time reading to your little. When we say 20 minutes of reading every night, we really mean 20 minutes of reading every night, because 20 minutes makes a difference. It really does.
Yes.
And get something that the kid likes to read.
Yes. Yeah.
And like I said, I'm going to do one more.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorites.
That's my
Allie
favorite.
loves that one.
That's my favorite.
The monster at the end of this book. I actually read this in when I was working at the preschool, and we had everybody in the circle time reading it, and one of the other teachers usually went to get the snacks together while we read. Well, I was reading this book, and she was still sitting there, and I say, are you going to get snacks? And she's like, oh my God, I'm just so caught up in the book. This was so good. You read so good. Because it's not, and I always read like, I would always tell my students, and you can attest to this, what did that say on the first page? What did that say? Did that say there will be a monster at the end of this book? It did. Oh, I'm so scared of monsters. Or is it, what did that say on the first page? What did that say? Did that say there will be a monster at the end of this book? It did. Oh, I am so scared of monsters. And then the book begins to come to life. They're sitting on the edge of their seats. There's a big difference in that read.
My mom, there's one page where he's like putting up a brick wall to get you to not turn the page, and my mom would always go like,
that's
like
exactly,
she was
like it's heavier.
she's pulling.
That's what and there used to be that show, Move That Bus.
Yeah.
Remember they made, and so I would say, you have to say, turn that page. And so all the kids scream, turn that, because it says, please do not turn the page. I'll be like, oh, you'll have to tell me, turn that.
Yeah.
Love it.
But I've noticed whenever I've read that book whenever I worked at our after school program, and I started doing where I would act like I was having a pull. So it generational.
Well, but also you were being modeled.
Yeah.
You were showed a good reading style. You turned around and did that, and that will continue. And listen, can you imagine listening to the first one? That book is an exciting book to read, but my voice did not make that sound very inviting. When I go, I'm known for this book. If I walk in, they want to know if I have my book, and that's the one they're wanting. The monster at the end of this, and all ages, it doesn't matter. It's that love, it's that excitement that's in your voice. So important. So important.
Yes.
Sorry, I got us back off.
No, that it's all good stuff. It's all good reminders. Like just read with your kids. Maybe they'll grow up and be on our podcast with us.
Yeah. That's right.
But all right, so this completes our first Mother's Day installment. So make sure to drop her a happy Mother's Day down in the comments. Mom, thank you so much for stopping by.
Listen, thanks for the invitation.
Yes,
I've enjoyed it.
Fun. This was so much fun. Just as a reminder, we are on all social medias. We've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, The Unfinished TBR. We've got an email, theunfinishedtbr@gmail.com. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. Just come say hi. And tell us what you read as children, and mothers, what are some tricks that you use on your kids to get them to read? We want to hear it all. So drop us a comment, and we will see you next week for another installment. Love you. Have a good week.